Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Honored to be with you this Shabbat and to share a few words of Torah. I'm told we are running late. I don't know what's wrong with the people who eat shacharit in the shul singing so much. They have no respect for the Torah.
We're running right on time.
What does it mean to give life to the world? How do we know when we're giving the best of ourselves to others or when we're stuck in our own egos and inner schmutz? And what exactly is with all the grasshoppers? Our Torah portion is an interesting look at the failures of our ancestors and the unhealthy connections between the continually frightened children of Israel. Are we almost there yet? I'm so thirsty I could plots, and can we please have something, anything else to eat? And their continually frustrated leaders. God, why won't these stubborn people listen to me? I do for them and do for them, and this is the thanks I get? They can eat quail until it comes out of their ears. And Moses, I didn't give birth to these people, God. You got us into this mess. Stop saying you want to smite these people. There's been quite enough smiting in the story already. Thank you very much. So forgive them, and let's move on already. I'm ready for my spot in the prophecy retirement tour and the good chubas of the promised land. Possible I added a little bit there. My apologies to the author. Our Torah portion is a beautiful, dysfunctional, holy mess. As always, it has much to teach us because most of the time, so are we. Today I want to focus on trust and giving life to the world. We heard how the story opened with God telling Moses to send for yourself spies to scout out the land, which I'm giving to the Israelites. The commentators and Midrash that God was probably not thrilled with this idea, and it says, Shelach lecha, send for yourself. If you want to send scouts, go right ahead, but I, God, don't need them because I know that it's a good place. According to the commentaries, the people demanded that scouts be sent to see just what kind of land they were going to live in. So here's my question, which if we had more time, we would take all sorts of time to discuss, but let's just assume they're all brilliant people with wonderful answers. Let's say that God is with you every day, telling you the rules by which to live a good life. You've got a pillar of fire by day and a cloud by night watching over you. You've got all the food you can eat in the original Airbnb, and all you have to do is listen for instructions, play by the rules, and keep walking towards the promised land. Let's step inside the mind of our ancestors for a moment. Given that they had everything they actually needed, why on earth would they demand to have spies sent to scout out the land? What's going on here? Thank you. All good points in the discussion. According to the Midrash, the Israelites told Moshe 4 reasons why they needed to send scouts to check out the land. First, God told us the land would be filled with good and precious things. Surely the Canaanites will hide all of their precious objects before we get there, so we need to send scouts to see their hiding spaces. Interesting. Second, Moses, you taught us we have to destroy all the idolatrous images in the land. But you told us we only need to destroy the idols they use for worship and not the ones that aren't being used. So obviously we need to know which idols to destroy and which we can sell on Amazon, right? How do you make a living in the Holy Land? Who knows? You call this a living? Third, that was a joke. God told us to drive out the inhabitants of the land little by little. We need to send scouts so we know where to attack first, because otherwise we'll end up deader than the Dead Sea. Fourth, the spies can learn the language of the land so we can spy on the natives in advance. Come on, we know there's Yiddish on Duolingo, but Canaanite and Amalekite haven't been developed on the app yet. We'll just have to learn them the old-fashioned way. So what's behind these 4 reasons? What's really going on here? Again, beautiful discussion here, all of these. The Midrash says that the real reason for the spies were because of 2 lingering fears in the Israelites' minds. First, although God assured them that the land of Israel was a good land, no one in their generation had actually seen it. Is the land really so special that it's worth fighting for? Second, compared to the numerous and well-trained armies of the 7 nations who inhabited the land, We have only a handful of skilled fighters. How could we face such a fearful enemy on unknown terrain without knowing the numbers and strength of their army? As Rabbi Tyler mentioned, the scouts go, 10 say, Oigevalt, and 2 of them say, it's a great place, we can manage it. There's a line at the end that the 10 say, and they say, we looked like grasshoppers to ourselves, and so we must have looked like to them. I think that their terrible report holds the key to understanding what's going on here. We looked like grasshoppers to ourselves, and so we must have looked like to them. Moses, I'm sorry to report that we are just not going to make it. We don't have enough ammunition to defeat the evil empire. There's too many of them, and if we go forward, we are all going to die. It's easy to understand their response. By show of hands, how many of us have ever talked ourselves out of moving forward with a dream of ours? Anyone other than me? Thank you for your honesty. How many times have we convinced ourselves that something terrible is going to happen, and then lo and behold, it does? It is so much easier to trust that things will go terribly for us in the future. How can we possibly believe that things will go well? What does it mean to feel like a grasshopper anyway? I don't think the scouts or any of us can actually know what it means to feel like a grasshopper. And I'm sure the scouts didn't actually understand just how beneficial grasshoppers actually are to our environment. They break down plants, fertilize soil, bred overgrowth, and feed predators. They might be small and jumpy, but we need them. But that's not what the scouts were thinking. They were thinking, Moses, we are nothing compared to them, and we're all going to die. Years ago, I was moving my belongings from one place to another. I was in a 16-foot Penske truck. I've moved many times, and I enjoy driving these moving trucks. Not anytime soon. You get to sit higher on the road and look down at those puny 4-door cars. It makes you feel mighty when you drive a 16-footer. I remember, though, that when I stopped at a rest stop, I had to park in the truck section, between the 18-wheelers. I parked between them and just stared. I may have been mighty compared to the minivans and sedans, but wow, did I feel puny compared to the 18-wheel behemoths of the road. Thankfully, it wasn't a competition and there was no life or death at stake. Side note though, if you ever want to be amazed, go sit at a rest stop and watch the 18-wheelers back up into the small parking spots. I still, to this day, have no idea how they do it. Back to our story. Think of a time when you felt small. It's disabling and disorienting. Too often, instead of facing our fears directly, we walk or run away and make up all sorts of stories to explain away our fear. I'm too old, too young, too short, too fat, too poor, too lazy, too unskilled, etc. for that to happen. Besides, no one wants to hear what I have to say. What do I even know about anything anyway? I'll just go back to my corner and hope no one notices me. Anyone else? We do this time and time again, running away from some of the necessary battles and refusing to believe that the future can be better than today. Imposter syndrome shows up when we try to do new things. Most of you know that our son Shamari was stillborn last year. Now, I've been drumming since I was 8 and playing with bands since I was 13, 30 years ago, and composing original melodies for the last 15 years. Melodies came as part of our fertility and mourning journey, and it came to me even a year ago that these melodies needed to be part of an album, and that Shamaria's music needed to be shared with others going through the pain of loss. I reached out to my friend Joey Weisenberg of Hadar's Rising Song Institute. We played together in college, and I respect his work. I asked if he had an album roadmap, a guide I could follow to make it happen. He sent it to me. It was about 12 pages long, single-spaced. I looked at it and thought, there is no possible way that my ADHD brain is going to make this happen. Besides, no one cares about my music, and what do I know about Jewish music anyway? Who am I to do this? I'm nothing. I'm not even a grasshopper. Let's just forget about this and move on. I can drum for others, and they'll always love me in the Watchword Ensemble. Right? But I'm not meant to shine on my own. Not for me. It's okay. I'll sit in the dark. Thank you, Safra. Anyone else here ever had a freak out like this? Of course you have. We all have, but anyone who's not raising their hands hasn't yet learned that it's okay to feel like a grasshopper sometimes. Let me say that again in case you missed it. It's okay to feel like a grasshopper sometimes. So often when the doubts come, though, we decide for ourselves what they mean, and we interpret our doubts as facts without questioning where our fears come from or seeing if there are ways to alleviate them. When I was freaking out about making the album, I was forgetting at least 3 key pieces of information. That was about what I sounded like. First, I think 30 years of making music does in fact mean I've earned my seat at the table. Second, I don't have to do it alone. I hired a producer, a videographer, found a band, about half of whom were members of the thumb, started voice lessons, and a lot more. Third, and most importantly, the album is more important than my fear. The album is a way to honor our son, and it's worth my being uncomfortable to make that happen. Nietzsche said, "He who has a why to live for can bear almost any how." The question is not how will all our dreams come true. The question is whether our reason for pursuing the dream is big enough to motivate us to endure the pain of disappointment that happens along the way. It's hard to stay motivated in a world that isn't easy. It's hard to get our hopes up after defeat. It's hard to hear when others aren't as supportive of our yearnings as we want them to be. The truth is, though, it's even harder to give up, to walk away, to live with the pain of regret and the disappointment of all the things we didn't do but could have done. Our dreams are more important than our fears. We will be okay. Like our ancestors, our job is to keep going, follow the rules, and find our way home one step at a time. So tomorrow, on Father's Day, the crowdfunding campaign for the album will go live, barring any technical difficulties. I'm not telling you this because I think you should all check my Facebook page tomorrow for the link to pre-purchase the album. God forbid! I would never try to encourage business dealings on Shabbos. And I'm not telling you that all the details going forward are known or will be smooth. When and where will we record? Where will the concerts be? What does the album artwork look like? Who will describe the rest of the melodies? What's the album subtitle? Harmonies, arrangements? Who knows? This and many more questions are still yet to be answered. All of us freak out sometimes. The real question is not whether we freak out. The real question is how do we respond when our fears and anxieties show up? Do we run away or do we push through? Do we know that the Holy One is with us on the journey, or do we give in to the voice that tells us that we are all alone? Do we face our fears or do we live with regret? Life isn't perfect, and there's no guarantee that things will work out as we want them to. There is only a guarantee that if we run away from our dreams, they almost definitely will not come true. At the end of our Torah reading, as Nomi chanted beautifully, God instructs Moshe to tell all of us that we need to put tzitzit on the corners of our garments, a cord of blue attached to each corner of our clothing. Torah says, look at it and recall all God's commandments and observe them so that you do not follow your heart and eyes in your lustful urge. Thus you shall be reminded to observe all my commandments and to be holy to your God. I, Adonai, am your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am, Adonai, your God. So these tzitzit are not just here to look pretty. They are a reminder that we are never alone on this journey and that our hearts and our eyes can often be deceiving. Sometimes we chase after what our eyes show us. I see it, I want it, I deserve it. Sometimes we chase after our stomachs. I'm so hungry, I need it. We get ourselves in trouble when we chase after our impulses. There's a reason why we live in a world of loneliness, isolation, and a staggering mental health and addiction crisis. I think the Torah is telling us here that sometimes what we see with our eyes and what we feel in our heart is only an illusion. Admittedly, it's hard to know what's real and what's not. How do we know if we're chasing a dream or an illusion? Earlier this week, I was with Rabbi Daniel and 30 other rabbis and Jewish educators at the closing retreat of a fellowship we've been doing with Hadar and Rabbi Yitz Greenberg. It was a lovely few days talking about different stages of interactions with God throughout Jewish history and how to find meaning in today's challenging world. One of the hallmarks of Rabbi Yitz's theology is that we, children of Israel, are called upon to act and interact covenantally. And every time we add life to the world, we are fulfilling God's wishes for us. When we choose not to give in to our fears, when we choose light over darkness, when we choose to live our lives in a way that brings life to the world, we are doing what God asks of us. Grasshoppers play an important role in the ecosystem. According to some parts of the Jewish world, they're even kosher to eat, although since we can't tell which ones are kosher and which aren't, it's better to avoid them entirely, also you. My point is this: it's okay to feel like a grasshopper sometimes. It's okay to doubt ourselves. It's okay to worry about what will happen. It's even okay to be scared. When we get scared, we have three choices. Option one, we turn around and run away back to the illusion of our comfort zones. Option two, we can get stuck in paralysis and indecision. Should I move forward or should I not? Does my life matter or does it not? Should I stay or should I go? We spin around and around and around, our questions preventing us from moving forward. Option three, we remember why we are doing this. We get help from others who've been there before. We remember that we've overcome other obstacles in the past, and we stand in our own power and say, I will keep taking one more step forward because it's too important to me not to make progress. I will keep going because it matters, because there is no choice, and because I know I can see it through until it's done. That, my friends, is how we learn to face the challenges of our lives. That's how we bring more life to the world. In every moment, said Rabbi Yitz, we have decisions to make about how to live our lives. The answer, according to him, is to choose the one that brings the most life to the world. Sometimes we need to question the stories we tell ourselves and get to the real fear that lies within. When the doubts come, we can give in, or we can learn and heal. We can find the support we need to write a new chapter in the story of our lives. We can live a better life and have a better tomorrow. Living well is hard. Choosing hope over fear is hard. Telling ourselves that what we see and what we feel isn't the whole truth is extremely hard. Our ancestors failed at it, and often we do too. This is why we need reminders, like the tzitzit, which connect us to our higher purpose. Every day, we have moments where we can let the best of ourselves choose the way forward. When we do, we might just find that the road ahead is not as hard as we expected. Others will find us and support us on the journey. And sometimes, when we least expect it, beautiful music will come our way. Shabbat shalom.